A poor boy from the countryside was mocked on his very first day at an elite private school. They laughed at his worn-out shoes, his wrinkled shirt, his old, weathered backpack. But when he sat at the piano and began to play, the laughter faded, and shame fell upon those who once believed that worth came from appearances. In that moment, silence turned into respect, and the music, his only inheritance, spoke louder than any last name. If this story has already stirred something inside you, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notification, because here we tell real and moving stories that prove no one is born defeated, and life always holds a turning point for those who don't give up. Now take a deep breath, because what you're about to hear isn't just a story, it's a reminder. The world may try to silence you, but true talent always finds a voice. It was early autumn in Vermont. Golden leaves covered the sidewalks like an old carpet forgotten by time. The wind blew gently yet cold, announcing the end of September. At the front gate of St. James Academy, a prestigious private school known for shaping the children of judges, businessmen, and politicians, a skinny boy with slumped shoulders walked in, carrying a worn-out backpack and the eyes of someone who had met the weight of the world far too early. Elijah Harper, 12 years old, recently transferred from a rural public school. He came from a small town called Ashford Hollow, where paved roads ended and cornfields began. He had lost his mother to an aggressive leukemia when he was just 8. His father, a mill worker, did what he could. But after the funeral, he fell into long silences, as if he'd forgotten how to speak. Elijah learned how to survive inside that silence. Their home was old, made of weathered wood, with leaky ceilings in the winter and unbearable heat in the summer. But tucked in a corner of the living room was a sacred relic, a battered upright piano, his mother's, which she used to play every night before bed. When she passed, Elijah kept the ritual going. Alone. Unable to read sheet music, he relied solely on memory. The sounds, the notes, the melodies he remembered hearing through the half-open bedroom door. It was there, with his small fingers pressed on yellowed keys that he cried, without tears. It was there that he spoke with his mother, with God, with the emptiness. And it was there that the boy no one saw coming was born. At St. James Academy, the children wore Italian leather shoes and wool coats with custom-stitched monograms. Elijah showed up in worn sneakers from Goodwill, a wrinkled shirt, and a hand-me-down coat that didn't quite fit. "Look at the new kid, a blonde boy," whispered near the marble staircase. "Came straight from the farm. Probably has hay in that backpack." They laughed. The classroom was large, lit by tall windows and lined with dark wooden shelves. Mr. Leonard Whitmore, the headmaster, a man with a rigid posture and a dry voice, watched it all unfold. He was known for keeping the school in strict order, British-style discipline, and calculated coldness. That day, the music teacher was absent, and the headmaster saw the perfect opportunity to turn the moment into a spectacle. "Let's see if the new student has any talent," he said, with a smile that felt more like a trap. "Mr. Harper, come up to the piano, show us what you've got." The room fell silent. Some students had already pulled out their phones to record. Someone whispered, "This is going to be a disaster." Elijah walked slowly. His hands were sweating, but not from fear, from memory. He sat on the dark wooden bench which creaked softly beneath him and looked at the keys. They weren't like the ones on the old piano at home. These shone like porcelain. He closed his eyes silently and began to play. It wasn't Beethoven. It wasn't Chopin. It was Ashford Hollow on a late afternoon. It was his mother's voice singing softly while she cooked dinner. It was the sound of rain falling on a leaky roof as he practiced in secret. The music seemed to tell the entire childhood of an invisible boy. The pain, the love, the loss, and that persistent flicker of hope. The head librarian, passing through the hallway, stopped in her tracks. Students put their phones down. Some lowered their heads. Others simply closed their eyes. as if they were hearing something they couldn't name. When the last note faded, the silence was absolute. There was no applause, because no one knew how to react. Principal Leonard, a man who rarely blinked, brought a hand to his chin. His voice cracked as he asked, "Who taught you that?" Elijah looked forward, steady, though his eyes glistened. "My mom, but she never really got to hear me play." The following week, the cold, aristocratic walls of St. James Academy gained something no one expected. On the Hall of Honor, usually reserved for names backed by generations of prestige, a new inscription appeared, freshly engraved golden. Letters shimmered beneath the morning light streaming through stained glass. Elijah Harper, selected to represent St. James Academy at the National Youth Piano Festival. Some students stopped in front of the board and stared in silence for several minutes. Others walked by, pretending not to notice. But even the most skeptical felt a quiet discomfort, a subtle shift in the air, as if the world was changing before their eyes, and they didn't quite know how to respond. In the music room, beside the grand piano rarely played with soul, a new bronze plaque had been installed. It bore no school crest, no principal's signature, just a simple phrase, yet one that seemed to carry generations of stifled meaning. Never underestimate silence. Sometimes it's just a song waiting for its moment to be heard. It was discreet, almost shy, but those who read it never forgot it. The phrase became a whisper in the hallways. It was quietly quoted in literature class. It made the front page of the student paper, written by a senior girl who used to ignore all underclassmen. And without anyone planning it, Elijah became a symbol, not of genius, but of something rarer, beauty hidden beneath the dust of hurry and prejudice. The cell. Cruel laughter stopped. The stares grew more respectful, and in time even the classmates who mocked him began to approach, some out of curiosity, others out of guilt. But Elijah never sought the spotlight. He continued walking the halls with the same quiet steps. He sat in the same corner of the library, ate alone at the same table, though now, some left handwritten notes with quiet compliments about his music. The competition drew near. Teachers and coordinators tried to prepare him with classical sheet music and formal exercises. But Elijah, always gentle, returned to his own melodies, the ones no one had ever written down, but which still lived in the depths of memory, where the sound of his mother's piano still echoed. On the morning of the trip to the festival, Principal Whitmore walked him to the front gate. As the bus waited, he placed a hand on Elijah's shoulder and said something he had never said to any student. "You've taught me more than I've ever managed to teach anyone here." But none of it, not the name on the honor board, not the headlines in the local paper, not even the bronze plaque immortalizing his story, none of it mattered most to Elijah, because deep down, he knew the real victory had already happened on that first day when he sat at the school piano with a trembling chest and closed eyes. In that unique moment, as his fingers searched the keys like they were chasing his past, he felt his mother's presence. He felt her beside him, smiling softly, just as she used to do when he hit the right notes in secret back at home. He didn't need trophies, nor applause. He only needed that invisible confirmation that from somewhere beyond time, she had finally heard him. And on that day, on that morning that seemed ordinary to the rest of the world, Elijah's silence found its sound. And with it, he found peace.